Okay, I think I'm gonna need my glasses. I didn't type the font big enough, so we'll just go with my glasses. Disclaimer, I don't have a library of stories. I can't just pluck one out and tell it. My stories start with a story I think I want to tell, and then that story gets turned over and over and over in my mind. So where we ended up this evening is I want to tell you a story about a story, and a story about being a storyteller. I was 8 years old in February of 1971. February of 71 was when Carole King released her iconic album, Tapestry. You know the album? Yeah. Oh, good. I loved that album. I didn't have much of a record collection, not one of my own. I recall a Sesame Street album and Mr. Rogers' Won't You Be My Neighbor, but my music collection was limited. But when you have older brothers and an older sister, their music, their album collections is the music you hear, and it becomes your own. And so in 1971, the songs from Carole King's Tapestry weren't just songs I heard on the radio. Carole King was in the house. And I loved it. I loved her. The Carole King on the album cover, sitting barefoot on the window seat in her gray cable knit sweater and jeans. Her sort of wild wavy hair lit up by the light coming through the window. She was everything. Earthy and hippie and cool and real. And her articulate alto voice, I feel like she's one of the artists where you could really hear and understand every word of every song she sang. And it wasn't my album, but I played it a lot. And I don't know if you remember, but the album sleeve was beige, and the lyrics to the songs were printed on it in horizontal paragraphs, each song like a story. And I would read the lyrics and sing along. I feel the earth move, Smackwater Jack, it's too late, you've got a friend, so far away, beautiful, and the rest. I was enthralled by Carole King and by every song on that album. And I can say it's the only album I've ever known all the words to, and I did, to every song, every word. And I know this because it was that Christmas or the one after when I got a Radio Shack tape recorder for Christmas. It came with a microphone and I got a couple of blank tapes too. And one day, shortly after Christmas, I took the Tapestry album and put it on the record player. I got my brother Michael's bulky white headphones and put them on my head and plugged them into the stereo. I put one of those blank tapes in my new Radio Shack tape recorder, plugged in the microphone, and pressed record. And as Carole King belted out Tapestry in my ear, I belted out every song into that microphone. It was exhilarating. We sang together. My alto voice joined with hers. My heart was singing and I was singing my heart out, hitting every note. I was making my Tapestry album and singing along with her. I felt about me how I felt about her. Earthy and cool. It was real. Carole King was in the house. I was Carole King. And when we were done recording my album together, I rewound the tape in the recorder and I hit play. It wasn't what I expected. I was actually shocked by it. Oh my gosh, I mean, flat, off key. I didn't sound like Carole King at all. It was really bad. And I can stand here and tell that story, and it's hilarious to me, especially the being shocked part. And it cracks me up and I laugh. And I can also stand here and think tenderly about that little girl. I can see her with the headphones on, her round glasses, her long stringy hair, and she is adorable to me. And I wish I could see her and hear her singing, "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." How flippin' cute would that be? A little kid knowing all the words to all the songs on Tapestry. How sweet. I can stand here and do that. Remember it like that. But if I go back to the moment when it happened, when I rewound the tape and hit play and heard the sound of my voice, I can remember how I felt. I can still feel it. And it felt bad. Really, really bad. I was so embarrassed by me. I had gotten myself all wrong. I was no Carole King. I was awful, really, really awful. And how could I ever have trusted me? Someone who'd been so wrong. I'd been so foolish, and now I was just ashamed. And I can tell you, it felt horrible to feel that horrible about myself. I don't want to feel like that ever again. I'm not crying, I got a little cold. I erased that tape immediately. Immediately. But that didn't erase the story. Because the story of being awful and one not to be trusted had already snuck its way inside into the marrow of my bones. And I've probably performed that shit story a whole bunch in my life. But it seems to rear its ugly head, most especially around things that make my heart sing, like storytelling. I went to my first storytelling show at the end of 2018, live lit at the Public Landing. I'd never been to one, had never been to anything like it, and I liked it a lot. Folks telling stories, storytelling being a thing, I thought that was so cool. And the stories, all the stories, each one different. And this cool thing happening right here in Lockport. I don't think I missed a single show. And then there were the classes they offered, and I signed up. And when those classes were over, I signed up again and again. In those classes, the writing exercises, the free writes, sharing stories in small groups, but with a small group, tender stories and funny stories, and all of us trying to figure out the writing and telling of stories. I loved all of that. I love everything about storytelling and stories. How the childhood memory in a teller's story sparks the remembering of something of your own, or the being taken away to another place, another experience through a teller's story, and visiting or seeing or understanding something new. And I love what happens in my own head when I'm trying to write a story. My brain gets all fluttery trying to put words together. And sometimes there's little life ahas, and sometimes it's frustrating trying to piece it together. But then there's the moment when it sort of comes together, and what started as an idea in my head turns into something that is maybe a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. And I love all that. And maybe most of all, I love how it feels to come here and hear stories, the rich tapestry of all of them. It somehow makes the world feel less lonely and divided. I truly believe stories connect us to one another, and connected is how I feel when I come here and listen to stories. And that just feels good. I love every single bit of it. It's like music to my heart. And so yeah, when asked, do you want to tell a story? I do. I want to. I really do, because music to the heart makes it want to sing. And so I come up with a story. And then it happens. I get really, really scared. And it was the thinking about how scared I feel before telling a story that became this story. I was counting them up, and I think this is the 8th time I'm telling a story. And 8 stories, 8 times coming up here. You'd think it'd get easier. And I don't mean that I wouldn't be nervous, because this is really a little scary. So being nervous seems only natural. But that's not how it is for me. Literally, in the days and hours before I get up here, the fear builds, and it becomes like terror. The day of, my daughter Joanna asks me, do you know what you're wearing? And the most important thing I should be wearing is deodorant, because by the time I arrive here, I am stink sweating and I can hardly breathe. And that doesn't feel normal or natural. And I haven't always known it, but I think it's that story. It's like you're all in my bedroom with me, and I'm gonna press play on that tape recorder, and you're gonna hear it. And this thing that makes me happy, that I enjoy so much, is gonna turn out horrible. But then I start, and I'm here, and it's now, and it's too late to be scared because it's happening. And all but just normal nervousness falls away, and I tell my story. And I am so flipping glad that it's over. And I am always glad that I did it. I think the good thing, the very, very, very good thing, is you cannot silence what is music to the heart. Though to be swell if you could quiet the terror when it wants to sing. And finding that unfair, untrue, ugly story hiding in my bones is helpful. And I'm hopeful. And I think maybe one day I'll be like, hey, no big shakes. Maybe this is flat, or fabulous, or completely off-key, but with no disclaimer. This is my voice. These are my stories. I love stories, and I want to sing along. I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.